Welcome back to Workday Rising, live from San Francisco. I'm Barbry McGann, Managing Director of Workday Ventures. And 20 years ago, we were founded on a bold idea, putting people at the heart of enterprise software. The vision still drives us today, and through Workday Ventures, we invest in innovative, fast-growing companies that deliver value to our customers and integrate seamlessly with our products. I'm here with two leaders today from the Workday Ventures program, Julia Stiglitz, CEO of Uplimit, and Ryan Alshak, CEO of Laurel AI. Julia and Ryan, thanks for joining us here today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And to start off, let's hear a little bit more about your companies. What we'd like to know is what idea in the market did you identify that led you to create your companies? What unique value proposition are you focused in on the future of work? And let's start with you, Julia.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me here. So my background is I've been in education my entire career. I started as a Teach for America teacher, and then I was one of the first employees at Coursera. But there was always this disconnect for me between what I experienced as a teacher, where learning was inspiring and interactive and engaging, and then what I saw with that first wave of online learning. And I thought, I think there's a better way that we can do this. I think there's a way that we can make learning online really engaging, really inspiring, really differentiated, and really work for more learners. And it's at a time where the pace of change in most workforces has never been greater, and the amount of skilling that people need to do in order to stay relevant and get ahead is more and more. And so we built a platform to be able to make learning actually really work online.
Terrific. And Ryan?
Yeah, so I was a lawyer in a previous life, and I remember doing my billable hours and thinking to myself, why the hell am I reminding a machine what I did at work when it should be reminding me? So that was really the genesis of the business. Let's use AI to have a machine present back to a person what we did. First company to automate a timesheet for professional services, but very quickly realized that actually that was a wedge. What was much more interesting is when you automate a timesheet, you actually collect data on what are people actually doing at work. And so the problem statement I'm obsessed with is that every industry has understood its supply chain except for knowledge industries, and that represents over 50% of GDP.
Yeah.
So just like you said in the beginning, putting people in the middle of enterprise software, we want to help people understand where are they actually spending their time at work? Where are they adding leverage? Let's keep human capital focused on that. Where should they be automating away their work, and what agents should they use to do that? And actually, what are the 3 hours a day of work that we all do that add no business value? And so that's why our mission is to return time to help knowledge workers understand what 3 hours matter, what 3 hours should be automated, and what 3 hours don't.
Excellent. So let's talk ROI. You both have AI native companies that are focused on outcomes. So what should organizations look to, business metrics, proof points, to know that they are on the right track to get to ROI? Ryan, let's start with you.
Yeah, so maybe how did we get here? And so we had an Overton window that was ChatGPT. November 22 hits, and we've never seen software take off like that ever, right?
True.
Quicker to 100 million DAUs. And so what ended up happening is it was a paradigm shift, not a platform shift. And so you had a bunch of boards going to their CEOs and saying, what's our AI strategy?
Yeah.
A bunch of CEOs going to their executive team saying, we need an AI strategy. And so we actually skipped steps. And those steps were, what telemetry do we want to put in place to understand our AI investments working? What's the instrumentation, and what success criteria do we want to have to see if these AI projects are actually working? We just immediately went into AI. And so what we need to do is now take a step back, and sort of history has a tendency to rhyme, and put that telemetry in place and align on what does success look like. For Laurel, there are two things that our customers want to see. How much more money are they making, and how much time are their people saving? And how do we make sure that we are quantifying that? Right now, adoption is the most sort of used metric as a proxy success for AI tooling. But just because you're using a tool doesn't mean that you're actually getting value out of the tool. And so enterprises, again, need to take a step back. We need to make sure that we're putting the telemetry in place. We need to make sure that we're aligning on the success criteria. And then we need to make sure that we have an honest feedback loop to see whether or not these AI investments are actually paying off. And when you do that, and only when you do that, can you start to understand, am I getting ROI for the AI investments that I'm making?
And it sounds like both on the top line and the bottom line.
I always think everything just comes down to time and money.
That's great.
We want to save people time, and we want to make organizations as much money as possible. Laurel is, I think, unique in that we're able to hit both of those sides of the ledger. For our professionals, we save them time. For our buyers, which are the firms themselves, we make them money. But we're very clear in the sales process what our methodology is, what our telemetry is, what our instrumentation is, and making sure that we are delivering what we're selling.
Excellent. And Julia?
Yes. So we work with large companies like Kraft Heinz and GE Healthcare, as well as really innovative growth stage companies like Databricks and Clay. And there's really two sets of metrics that they think about when thinking about ROI. The first is around efficiency. So can they create courses faster and deliver them more efficiently? Databricks, as an example, reduced the amount of instructor time by 75%. Their cohorts went from being about 20 people. They had to cap it at that size because of the limitations of the technology, till now their cohorts are about 1,000 people running every single week. So real efficiency gains that can be had by leveraging AI within the learning experience and within the administrative technology. So that's one. And then the second is really around learner outcomes. So is there a superior outcome for the learners because of the technology? And it starts with looking at completion, but then more than that, it looks at did they apply the skills back to the job? And was there some sort of progression in terms of their skill development during that period of time? And so for most of our customers, they start with a pilot and they're analyzing those two metrics or those two sets of metrics and seeing how working with us compares to what they're doing right now and seeing what it unlocks for them as an organization.
Excellent. So let's build on that a little bit, because you mentioned a proof of concept or a pilot. And so really curious, what advice do you give to organizations that have a proof of concept or a pilot that then need to kind of scale it to an enterprise-wide adoption and get that adoption? What would you recommend, Julia, in that case?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first, I think it actually comes from setting up the pilot really well. So thinking about like, what are the metrics that you're actually trying to move? AI is so exciting. The demos are so cool. It can be easy to be enamored by the technology, but unless the technology is solving an actual real problem for the organization, it won't get adopted across the board. It'll stay in this pilot demo stage. And so I think the first is setting up a really great pilot that has metrics that are going to move, and those metrics have to matter for the organization. One of the use cases that Uplimit has is around actually customer education. And some of our biggest customers have been AI software companies like Databricks, who are using our software to drive adoption of Databricks, or Clay, who's using us to drive adoption of Clay. And there, the big insight that we've had is that if you want to drive adoption across a lot of end users, they need to have that aha moment from actually experiencing the value of that technology. It can't be, watching a video about something. It has to be them actually hands-on, seeing the value, experiencing that aha moment, seeing how it can make their work easier. And then with that, adoption rapidly comes.
Excellent. And Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, I think AI is very much a B2B to C. And we've been focusing so much on the B2C side that we've lost the plot on the B2B side. So what do I mean by that? Enterprises need to be opinionated as to what they are trying to see. And so what is an AI strategy at an enterprise right now? It's typically, let's throw a Microsoft Copilot over the fence. Let's throw an enterprise ChatGPT instance over the fence, and let's let professionals use it however they want. Just because professionals are using AI tooling doesn't mean that we're actually getting value out of it.
Back to that aha moment.
One of our customers, we actually analyzed their usage of Microsoft Copilot, and the top 3 use cases were: number 1, Microsoft Teams chat. Second is Outlook inbox drafting. And third is actually prompting Copilot to ask, what can Copilot do? And so in that third example, that's considered usage, that's considered value, but we know that we're not actually moving people up the value chain. So first, we have to allow and enable enterprises to understand, what are we trying to accomplish here? What specific work streams do we want to burn down? And where do we want to reallocate that human capital? The second is then, I'm a big Charlie Munger. Show me the incentive, I'll show you the behavior. How do you message to both end users and organizations what the value of the software is? How do you make sure that there's a payoff, that magic moment for every end user? How do you make sure that you're speaking in a language that is useful to them? For example, at Laurel, just because the company makes more money doesn't necessarily impact the end user. So what we have to speak to them is in the context of how much time that they're saving. This is a workflow that they hate doing. They're going to save time doing it. That's why they use Laurel. That's a different message than when we go to the CXOs and say, hey, congratulations, your organization made $59.8 million, which is an actual number from one of our
That's a
clients.
real number,
That's
right,
a real
Ryan?
number.
That's a real output.
That's now been independently validated and audited by a big law firm.
Yes.
But those are very different messages. So again, first we have to be top down. What are we trying to accomplish?
Yep.
What do we want to see? And then how do we create a narrative to the end users that aligns with the behavior that we want to see that?
I like that approach, bottoms up and also top down. Very good.
I think EdTech is the perfect example. It really is a B2B to C.
Yeah.
And they've really been able to figure out both sides of it. And enterprises have to really be thinking from first principles. How do we win the B2B and how do we win the B2C?
That's very good advice. Let's talk. We've been talking a lot about AI. I'd love to get your opinion on where you feel AI is supercharging human capital or is it replacing it? And how do you see these two coming together, AI and human, in the future of work? And Brian, let's start with you on this one.
I'm a human optimist. I think
I love that. I'm gonna use that phrase.
I am
an
an optimist, and I think that there are work streams that are I call uniquely human. So I'll sort of animate this with a story. I had a chief strategy officer at one of my customers say, Ryan, I'm in charge of our M&A strategy. I hired a consulting firm to identify great M&A opportunities for us, and they came back 2 weeks later and they gave me a pretty suboptimal list. Let's say I pushed them 2 weeks later. And they came back with another list. And then I threw it into an O3 reasoning model. And within 14 minutes, I got a better output than the consulting firm gave me after 4 weeks. That's the power of AI. But then I had, this is the CSO talking, a moment. Then what? Who's going to transact that deal? Who's going to go to the target M&A and build trust, build empathy, build a business case as to why 1 + 1 = 3? Those are uniquely human work streams.
I would agree with that.
I love to say, like, we've never quantified business development before. Mark Benioff is a personal investor in Laurel. He understands activities and outcomes better than anyone in the history of the world. But we've never actually quantified how much time are people in organizations spending on business development. Why am I so excited about our Workday partnership? We've actually never quantified how much time people are spending on HR, on performance management. Are we happy with that number? Do you want them doing more, less? You cannot manage what you don't measure.
Excellent.
And so I want Laurel to be able to be the eyes and the ears to say, hey, here are work streams that machines are better at doing, like identifying M&A opportunities, and let's reallocate that human capital to the things that are uniquely human, like business development, like relationship management,
Right.
like training, like performance management, like first principles thinking. These are things that AI is many, many decades away from being able to meaningfully compete with humans on.
Excellent. Julia, how about you?
Yeah. So on a micro level, we spend a lot of time thinking about what should be human and what can be totally automated, even within our product experience. So as an example, we have a whole nudging infrastructure to help motivate people to complete courses. And we found that if the nudge comes from a human, it's dramatically more effective than if they think it comes from a bot.
That's interesting.
But all of the legwork in terms of analyzing what learners should be nudged, in terms of drafting the personalized nudges, and in terms of sending it out, all of that can be automated. And so you can have a human that is still making the decision to send. It still can come from a human, but all of the legwork can be done by AI. And so I think I think there's opportunity to think about, even a micro level, what can be human and what can be automated to have an impact. I would say more broadly, though, when I think about education, there's still a scarcity in terms of people having access to really quality learning experiences.
That's true.
Yeah, if you look at the percentage of college graduates, if you're talking about formal education in the US, which is about 30% or so, or globally it's about 10%, like there's still scarcity. And I think what AI unlocks and the potential of it is that you can make it not scarce anymore. And I think that'll help talent that's all over the world, hopefully get the skills that they need to be able to achieve what they want to achieve.
Well, thank you both so much for joining us today. Very, very insightful and really appreciate it. And thank you for tuning in.